Welcome in. You're listening to Locked On Now NHL, local experts weighing in on the biggest stories on the ice. I'm your host, Kainani Stevens. Thank you for making Locked On Now your first listen every single weekday. We've got our Locked On NHL hosts here. They're recapping all of the playoff action from Thursday. 4 teams had their season on the line in last night's games, 3 of them forcing a decisive Game 7. We begin with the defending champs holding off the Maple Leafs in last night's biggest game.
The biggest game.
Toronto could not close it out against Tampa in Game 6. The Lightning getting a dramatic overtime win to force Game 7. Locked On Maple Leafs knows the team will need to shake off this disappointing loss before Saturday.
The Maple Leafs fall to Tampa Bay in overtime as the Bolts force a Game 7. I'm Mike DiStefano from Locked On Leafs. Tampa Bay got the party started in the first period. An awful turnover from Alex Kerfoot. Palat coming in all alone on the goaltender. He puts it past Jack Campbell, and Tampa took a 1-0 lead into the second intermission. And then in the second period, Anthony Cirelli, a shorthanded goal. Bit of a tough one for the Maple Leafs to give up. But Austin Matthews, a few moments later, would cut into their lead to make it 2-1 and get the first puck past Andrei Vasilevsky. And then late in the second period, John Tavares, the captain for the Toronto Maple Leafs, scores 2 in 26 seconds to flip the script and go up 3-2. Heading into the third period, things were going swell, and then the penalties came. 2 high-sticking calls in a 17-second span for the Maple Leafs. They found themselves killing off a 5-on-3. Nikita Kucherov buries one to tie the game. No score through the rest of regulation. It heads to overtime. Leafs pressuring in overtime. Probably should have won that game. They were the better team, and they were playing with a lot more pressure in OT. But a tough giveaway at center ice, leading to a Tampa rush up the ice where Braden Point goes hard to the net and scores the overtime winner. 4-3 Bolts would end up being the final. They force a Game 7. The Maple Leafs now 0-8 in games where they can advance into a series in the Matthews and Marner era. Can they put their first one up in the win column in Game 7? Head over to Locked On Leafs for a breakdown of Game 6 and a preview of Game 7. I'm Mike DiStefano from Locked On Leafs, your team every day.
The home team continues to rule in the Boston and Carolina series. Locked On Bruins recaps a big win, but talks about what it will take to get another one on the road in Game 7.
The Boston Bruins are still alive in the 2022 Stanley Cup playoffs after defeating the Carolina Hurricanes by a score of 5-2 at TD Garden here on Thursday night. This is Ian McLaren, host of Locked On Boston Bruins, and it was a complete team effort from the Boston Bruins, who have dominated on home ice so far this series in what has been an even split between the two teams. Carolina has won all 3 games in their home arena, and the Bruins will have to overcome their home ice advantage in order to move to the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. But for tonight, they took care of business on home ice. Massive penalty kills in the second period, including a 5-on-3. And then they came back, scored a power play goal of their own, and then it was all Boston from there as they took it to the Carolina Hurricanes 5-2, getting contributions from up and down the lineup. All 4 lines contributing to the scoring in this one. So there will be a Game 7 on Saturday night in Carolina. The Bruins still have a chance to advance to the second round.
Hey there, hockey fans. Jared Ellis here, host of Locked On Hurricanes. And tonight, the Carolina Hurricanes had the opportunity to close out the series against the Boston Bruins, but they failed to do so. The Carolina Hurricanes, they were suffering from some sloppy passes, some bad neutral zone play, and just bad turnovers, and just overall not the effort that the Hurricanes needed to bring into this game. They did not play like a team that was looking to close out a series. And they really dropped the ball here, and I think we know, and the team knows, that they are going to be in for a dogfight come Saturday in Game 7. The Hurricanes are undefeated in Game 7 since relocating back in 1997. So while there is that statistic on our side, that kind of stuff means nothing come game time. So let's hope for the best come game 7, and let's see this Hurricanes team move on to round 2.
The Minnesota Wild struggled throughout their series with St. Louis, and the Blues closed things out in Game 6. Locked On Wild details the end of Minnesota's season.
And the season is over. Hey everybody, Seth Topal, host of Locked On Wild, your daily Minnesota Wild podcast, recapping a 5-1 loss in Game 6 to end a magical season for the Minnesota Wild. Much like Games 4 and 5, the Wilds come out with some energy to start the game. The Blues match it and score, and it's all downhill from there. The Wild did get a goal from Matt Dumba to make it 4-1, but Cam Talbot had the same issues that Marc-Andre Fleury did with rebound control, and the Wild could not push the Blues out from in front of the net. And the series ends much like the first few games of the series did, and so the Wild, instead of continuing to add to their storybook season, are now going to go into off-season mode, much like we all wanted. And we will continue. We'll start off-season mode come Monday. So for more on Game 6 and more on looking ahead to the off-season, make sure you are following along with Locked On Wild wherever you listen to podcasts.
The Oilers and Kings are bound for Game 7 as well after the Oilers held off the Kings on Thursday. Locked On Kings and Locked On Oilers breaks down everything post Game 6.
So on the one hand, no one thought the Kings would even be here in the first place. A, in the playoffs. B, in a position to win a series. C, in the position where they're going to be playing a Game 7. So the Kings losing tonight to the Oilers, could be worse. We're just having fun, right? But they had a chance to clinch the series. They were up 3-2, went back home to Los Angeles, and instead, once again, special teams troubles and Connor McDavid troubles lead the Kings to a 4-2 loss, including goals from Evander Kane, who I think that we'll all be super ready to not hear about anymore once this series is over. Kings get goals from Carl Grundstrom and Sean Dursey, who actually scored a power play goal, so that was great. But the Kings couldn't capitalize on a late power play, and instead the series goes back to Edmonton for a Game 7. Can the Kings rise up and do the unexpected? Are the Oilers going to Oiler that last game up? We're going to find out. Game 7 is on Saturday. To keep up with all the action, make sure you're listening to Locked On Los Angeles Kings wherever you get your podcasts.
And we are going to a Game 7. The Oilers pull it off in Game 6 as Connor McDavid gets a piece of each and every goal except for one in Game 6 for the Oilers as he started off the scoring his third goal of the series in the first period as the Oilers get the first goal of the game and actually get a great start. Evander Kane also getting 2 goals on the night, including the empty netter. Also, Cody Ceci chipping in with 2 assists as well. Tyson Barrie getting credit with the game-winning goal. What a beautiful goal by Tyson Barrie. Beautiful shot. And the Oilers will have a Game 7 at Rogers Place on Saturday night. The last time the Oilers were in a Game 7, May 10th, 2017, against the Anaheim Ducks. The final score in that one, 2-1, as many Oilers fans will remember, for the Anaheim Ducks. A very controversial series for the Oilers. The one goal for the Oilers in that Game 7, Drake Caggiula. Yeah, remember him? The Oilers, unfortunately for them that time, didn't have home ice advantage, but for Game 7 on Saturday night at 8 o'clock, the Oilers will have home ice advantage for Game 7.
That's all for today on Locked On Now NHL. Thank you for making Locked On Now your first listen every single weekday. Make sure you're tuning into Locked On NHL and your team's Locked On podcast, especially now during these playoff runs. I'm Kainani Stevens. This has been Locked On Now.